the deadline for Clarkstown to put on the to put a referendum up for the November election on the Palisades Center is approaching. I don't know when it is exactly, but I assume it's sometime in the early fall that the town council is going to have to decide whether they want to allow a public referendum to decide whether the mall is going to be able to build out its 250,000 square feet of space on the fourth floor. And, Councilman Don Franchino, whose ward includes the center, Palisades Center, he's been pushing pretty hard for a referendum all along. And there are a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. For example, there's a citizens group that's meeting with the mall sometime this week to try to persuade progress on this. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of interest in the film Mega Mall that's playing this week at Rivertown. And it just feels like, the community, I think, is looking for some kind of movement or conclusion on this other than this constant litigation. As we know, they have lost 2 rounds so far in federal court, but the mall has lost 2 rounds in federal court, but they are appealing that decision, and they also have the right to take this back to the state court. So it's not over. It's going to drag on for a very long time. And, we don't know what it's going to cost the town. But it's kind of like just a cloud that's hanging over us with a lot of uncertainty. And then throw in 2 more factors. One is, the financial health of the mall in general, which if you look at, JCPenney being shuttered, and I don't know what the fate of Lord & Taylor is, and other vacancies, and the threat of the American Dream Mall, which we've talked about on this show. But, this mall is clearly under pressure, and they contribute $21 million in taxes, and the really frightening piece of this is that back in 2013, they did a tax appeal, and that cost Clarkstown $6 million, that the town itself and the school district nearly, I think, $14 million. So they had agreed when they had that settlement back in 2013 that they would not do another tax appeal until 2020, which is around the corner.
You're talking about a certiorari, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now you have in the mix a mall that wants to build its 250,000 square feet. You have this now potential looming threat that they can bring yet another tax appeal.
How could they make an arrangement to do another one when they don't know what their position will be? In other words, a certiorari is done because they think the town's charging them too much in taxes for the revenue that's being derived. How could they say, okay, we're going to do another one? They don't come systematically, do they?
I think that any commercial tenant or landowner who's got a piece of property can file the tax appeal. They just happened to strike a deal with the town in 2013 not to do another one until 2020. So this whole thing is kind of like, boiling to a head, because I can only this is the mystery piece of this story, which is this. It's a question: is George Homan, in backroom discussions, banking on the idea that he's going to be able to trade away, the green light to give them the ability to build out their space either with or without a referendum, and that will make the tax appeal go away? Does he think that is the bargaining chip? And I think that's kind of the $65,000 question, as to whether that is enough leverage for the town to bargain with the mall. It would seem that maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. Maybe the mall will stand firm and say that they still believe that they're on firm legal ground, and that the referendum was never a legal thing.
Deals are a part of politics. I mean, if he can make a deal that'll cost his constituents less money than going to court and going through the whole thing, and then ultimately having to pay them even as much, or maybe more than they did back in 2013, then kudos to him.
If he can pull that off.
Yeah, well.
But in the meantime, we're coming up on very likely a deadline to put this to a vote in November. And I think throw one more layer into this, which is the election, and he's running. And I guess I don't know, maybe he's hedging his bets and saying, let's not put this into this election, or maybe he should put it up for this election. I mean, I know that Don Franchino from Ward 3 has been staunchly in favor of the referendum for as long as I can think. He just firmly feels that it's time. I think that he believes that the voters will say, let's give them all, the right to build out the space. That we all, I guess his argument is that we all have an interest in the mall remaining healthy and in financial and in good financial shape. And but there's when you put anything to a vote, there's always a wild card. And there's always a possibility that it could go an unpredictable way. I think there's a lot of I don't know if there's a lot of leftover animosity toward the mall from 20 years ago, or what. But it's a real sticky wicket. It's a real jam that eventually has to have a conclusion. And it's just interesting to see whether that conclusion is going to be brought to a head sooner rather than later, or are we going to see a referendum, or aren't we? Maybe when he's on the show next, you can ask him this question, because I could tell you that it is on the minds of many different people, of many different groups.
He's on every Monday morning at 8:15. We were unaware of this, or it was backburnered, so I didn't ask him, but he'll be on next Monday.
Yeah, it's. I can tell you that a lot of people are talking about it, and there's a lot of interest in it, and it's complicated because it's the sort of thing where, well, first of all, I mean, it's impossible to know all of the factors. I mean, there may in fact be backroom dealing going on right now as we speak, or maybe at the end of this radio broadcast, the meeting will take place. But the point is, I think that the voters, at the very least, would like to know whether or not there will be a referendum on this, because I think it would give the community some idea as to where this stands and what it's going to mean potentially. I mean, another $20 million hit on a tax appeal would be pretty devastating to Clarkstown, the town and the...
Sure would.
Yeah, it really would. But, the mall has the right to do it. JCPenney is empty. Like I said, Lord & Taylor, it looks like it's limping along. I know, there are definitely vacancies, and they are definitely facing a lot of economic threats. So this is the Monday morning question.
Okay. Now, I assume you have an article in your publication about this, right?
Yeah, we have. Well, we have several. We've been following the story very closely, and we have a recent column that we put up last week called "Clarkstown versus the Palisades Center. It's Complicated." And then subtitle is "Town's Financial Vulnerability May Give Mall Upper Hand." So people should check out that column and participate in this.
Let me ask you this: do you have tantamount to letters to the editor? Do you have a place in there for comments from people?
You know, that's a good question.
I'm talking about your magazine.
I know what you're talking. We had a feature on the site where people could comment, and I'm not sure we may have disabled. Let me just.
A lot of people read it, and it might give you a good insight as to how they would, at least at this point in time, how they would vote for a referendum should it occur.
Yeah, you know what? You've just given me a good idea.
I always do.
Yes, maybe what we'll do is we'll put up a little survey on this.
Yeah, do it. I'm dying to hear what people think.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right.
That's a great idea.
Now,
Okay, well, we're going to make that happen.
You're at RC Biz, B-I-Z, Journal.
RCBizJournal.com.
All right, see if this gets any traction by next Monday when we talk to you.
That sounds perfect.
All right, Tina, thank you.
Let me know what you hear.
All right.
All right.